Hi, welcome to Simply Scuba. Now when you're buying your regulators, your submersible pressure gauge is pretty low on your radar, but there are lots of different features into choosing your gauge, so let's take a closer look at them. Single gauge. Single pressure gauges are the simplest. They only consist of a submersible pressure gauge or SPG, and they tell you exactly how much air you have left in your cylinder. Double gauge. Double gauges also have a submersible pressure gauge, but they add a depth gauge onto the top as well, so you know how much air you have left and exactly how deep you are. Triple gauge. Triple gauges have all three. They have a pressure gauge, a depth gauge, as well as a compass, so you know how much air you have left, how deep you are, and which direction you're facing. Slimline. Slimline pressure gauges are the simplest. They have a plastic polymer front, which makes it very light, nice and slimline, but they are a bit more fragile than brass gauges. 52mm. 52mm gauges or brass gauges have tempered glass on the front, which makes them heavier but much stronger, so they're preferred by technical divers. Black face gauges have a black face instead of the bright white, so they're better for low light conditions, so that when you shine your torch on them, you don't get too much glare as you would from a traditional white faced gauge. Oxygen. Oxygen gauges are for higher content O2 cylinders, so they're best for closed circuit rebreather divers or divers with high percentage oxygen stage cylinders. Attachment points. Many pressure gauges come in boots that have attachment points around them, so you can clip them off onto a BCD D-ring, but some submersible pressure gauges have them built into the body themselves. Swivel pin. Your swivel pin is probably the most important part of your pressure gauge, as every gauge needs a swivel pin when you attach it to a hose. 63mm. 63mm gauges have a larger face compared to the 52mm variety, so if you struggle to read your gauges, you can take a look at a 63mm gauge. Fluorescent. Most, if not all, pressure gauges have a phosphorescent screen, so when you charge them up with a torch, they'll glow in the dark. Stage. Many gauges nowadays come fitted with a 15cm or 6-inch hose. These are best for stage cylinders, as you have a nice compact short little hose, so your gauge isn't flapping around in the water. Hoses. The hose your gauge is attached to is very important, as you get traditional rubber hoses which are heavier, but you also get lighter braided hoses that are much more flexible, but they do tend to float. Hose ends. The male end of your high pressure hose is a universal fitting, so even though they do look different, it's the same thread on all first stages. SPG. Your SPG or submersible pressure gauge will be color coded, often with a red area under the 50 bar mark and green areas over 200, so you know exactly how much air you have left and whether it's good or bad. Depth gauge. Analog depth gauges are very simple. They tell you exactly how deep you are at any given moment, but most of them have a resettable maximum depth needle that follows the main needle and lets you know your maximum depth of your previous dive. Compass. Your compass tells you which direction you're facing, and they have a rotating bezel along with a gateway at top so that you can hold a steady bearing. Along the centre you have the red lubber line, and you often have side windows so you can see which direction you're facing at any given time in the water. So that was a good look at submersible pressure gauges. Which gauge do you use? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and safe diving.